Hello, welcome to ARPDC's Fluency Instruction in the new Grades 4 to 6 English Language Arts and Literature curriculum. Thank you for being here, and I'd like to share with you this afternoon some information about how we can support fluency for grades 4, 5, and 6. Let's have a ponder about something. Fluent readers use decoding skills to move quickly through the material to achieve comprehension. That's a reasonable idea, reasonable thought. Do they? And also, individuals who possess extensive knowledge on a topic prior to reading are able to recall more of the important information from a text than can individuals with a lower level of initial knowledge in the topic. So let's think about that for a moment. And let's include thinking about the 5 pillars of literacy. Where does fluency land in that? So in the year 2000, the National Reading Panel identified a number of different effective reading instruction that facilitated reading in general, how students begin to read and how they continue to read and build comprehension. This was a focus of a meta-analysis that was done in the years prior to the publication in 2000 and still holds true today. And we've also added to that. But our focus today is on fluency, and we look at phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, and comprehension as part of the pillars, but that pillar of fluency is also very important to reading instruction. According to Rositzky, reading fluency refers to the ability to read text aloud with sufficient speed, accuracy, and expression, referred to as prosody. It's also made up of 2 components that is about automaticity in word recognition and expression in oral reading. And that expression, word recognition, helps reflect the meaning of the text. Reading fluency in itself is also a bridge between decoding and comprehension. And that is very important they are important elements in terms of proficiency and meaningful reading. Automaticity is one of the most important keys that we start with. Automaticity means that the word recognition, the decoding of words is fast and effortless because that word recognition has gone into that long-term memory. And for some kids, we need to spend more time on building that sound symbol awareness in order to build automaticity and get it into the long-term memory. So though it is about a great deal of practice, it is also about accuracy and word recognition, and in order to build that expressive reading ability. So in order for readers to read fluently, automaticity has to be achieved. But we also need to build in the expression as well. And that comes from the comprehension piece. For struggling readers, fluency is often an issue. You can also have students who can decode effortlessly, and it sounds somewhat fluent, not always with expression, and so fluency is affected as well. So they may not show and demonstrate the comprehension that we want them to. So those that have a history of sound symbol difficulty, that phonemic awareness, the phonics, that interfere with decoding, that we've referred to as disfluent reading. So day after day, everything they read is just too difficult, and they're stopping and starting, or what we call choppy reading. They do lots of repetition, or they look to the adult in the room to help them decode or identify a word, or they simply skip words. Part of fluency looks at these areas: pausing, phrasing, intonation, stress, and rate. So when we talk about pausing, when do we take a short break? Do we know and have we practiced having a short break at a comma or at a period or other end punctuation? What does a dash do? And what is really a full stop when we come to a period? When we have a student who doesn't identify those punctuation cues, that is to us an indication that there is some other work to be done to build fluency. Phrasing talks about pauses and the intonation, and it sounds like it should be a little more natural when students are reading. Intonation refers to how the tone of the voice rises and falls, and how the reader themselves, how they vary their voice using this to reflect the meaning of the text. The stress on certain words, that is to say, one word is a little louder than others, or more emphasis is put on it, is important. And then the rate of reading. If it's too slow or too fast, there is some indication that there's a difficulty with decoding or a lack of understanding. So as we look at the curriculum, we see that our organizing ideas, those are the ideas that go from kindergarten right to grade 6, are reflected the same across the grade levels. That fluency is identified in kindergarten, grade 1, 2, 3, and 4. And beyond that, it's not an official part of the curriculum in grades 5 and 6. But that's not to say that we don't look at the work that grades 5 and 6 are doing in fluency. So what does fluency look like in grade 4? Well, the organizing idea, again, kindergarten and forward, that comprehension and literary appreciation are improved by the ability to read a range of texts accurately, automatically, and with expression. The guiding question for grade 4 is, how does fluency support comprehension and proficient reading? So then we get to our learning outcome. Learning outcome is what we report on in our progress reports and to families. The learning outcome for fluency in grade 4 is students enhance fluency to refine comprehension and proficient reading. Now, one of the things that we have identified is comes from the cusps. The cusps, remember, are the knowledge, understanding, and skills and procedures. And as I'll show you in the next slide, we will see where the understanding fits with the cusp and how we've pulled the cusp out in order to show one of the ways that we can talk about the learning outcome. So here we have the learning outcome as enhancing fluency to refine comprehension and proficient reading. The understanding that we expect from the students is that reading with fluency allows readers to focus more attention on understanding the text and to support proficient reading. So really, there's a greater focus on the demonstration of comprehension in grade 4 as far as fluency is shown. So here's the cusp as a whole, the knowledge, understanding, skills, and procedures. And there is the understanding that we kind of pulled out to accompany the learning outcome. So remember, the knowledge is the what is being taught, and the skills and procedures are the how it could be taught. So in this case, in fluency in grade 4, the knowledge is proficient reading involves the ability to read with accuracy, automaticity, and prosody with a focus on meaning. And how do we do that? In skills and procedures, we look at how students will do activities to demonstrate comprehension of a text through the appropriate stress on words, pausing, phrasing, intonation, use of punctuation. So we're giving them lots of practice in those areas. And as well, how else can we help support that fluency ability is we get students to read dialogue that has phrasing, expression, in order to reflect their understanding of the characters in a story, a play, a poem, and the events surrounding it. So as I said, we took that out. So let's focus on what are some of the words that are identified in fluency in grade 4, from the learning outcome to the cusps. And so in a previous in-service, we had participants identify some of the key words in fluency in grade 4. And we can see here those words that have come from the practice that students will look at. There are high frequency words or sight words, heart words, punctuation, quotation marks, prosody, proficiency, dialogue. How do all those things affect the reading ability of students and how they can demonstrate that in fluency? So let's dive into what fluency looks like in grade 5 and 6 with a fluency boot camp and a focus on resources. And these resources are meant to extend the fluency focus that has happened between kindergarten and grade 4, and in grade 5 and 6, and in grade 4, of course. We look at these aspects of fluency and help support. So when we looked at the how piece, the skills and procedures, here are some strategies, some resources that you can implement to reinforce the learning of fluency that has come before grade 5. So here's our fluency boot camp. So what we want to look at are the number of things that students can focus on and teachers can focus on. This can be as a whole class, day-to-day front-loading matter for all students. Or if as needed, the teacher will look at small group instruction for individuals who need additional support or additional practice. So here you will find in the resources that are sent to you a number of different links to different resources. So what you're going to find in the resources is anything that is underlined is a link, a live link to a resource. And so here under high frequency words, we look from Alberta Education from kindergarten to grade 3, some links to high frequency words. Now, some are only available with a login to New Learn Alberta, or now we're going to Learn Alberta. And so when you click on the links for kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, it should go directly to a list resource of these high frequency words. And those words are based on the Fry word list. There are other high frequency word lists that you can use. These are the ones that are available on New Learn Alberta. There's also a link here to Fry instant phrases. So it is the high frequency words, but placed into phrases and sentences, and how to build sentence trees. And the vocabulary link, well, one of the things that we know about vocabulary is that it is really a very important piece of comprehension, and that one of the most important indicators of success in school is building a strong vocabulary. And so a link there for a variety of activities for building vocabulary in your classroom. Poetry is wonderful. It is a great way to build on that expressive language. They can be short. Some poems, of course, are long, but they can be easy to learn for some. They're very rhythmic. And poetry is reading. So you can click on the link above to have some connections to some poetry ideas. Fluency deep reading, there's a development lesson there, but this is based on the work by Timothy Wazinski that talks about phrased text lessons and how supportive that is. That deep reading just goes the extra step. And of course, music in itself is also reading. It's also very similar to poetry, and it can be very cultural and it feels good. Some other things to work on in the classroom. And remember, these are not something, or all of these are not do them all. You find what works for your teaching style. So Reader's Theater is also very enjoyable, social engagement, similar to the radio reading that I'll talk about. People play a part in the classroom, and it's different from that round robin reading where you read, you read, you read. Radio reading and Reader's Theater just helps with the understanding, and it is a part that a person plays rather than being put on the spot. Choral reading, echo reading, paired reading, and again, radio reading. Radio reading is just what it would be if you were doing a radio show from back in the day. Book talks can be a lot of fun, and it can be a hook for some of those reluctant readers. If we look at it from a very short point of view, where students take 30 seconds to do a book talk. Some other ideas, poetry coffee house, you can call it poetry tea house, you can call it poetry house, assisted reading, mumble reading, and the last one, impromptu choral reading. You'll see there where there's on our fourth sticky paper there, it says these resources explained. And so the resource itself will be explained as you go to that link. And so what that looks like as we go to it, it is a collection of a number of different things. And in this case, talks about the high frequency words that you would find from grades 1 and grade 2, I believe grade 3. And so it shows what are the words from the Dolch list that are there, what's in the Fry list, and for those of you who may be using the Fontes and Pinnell, which words are there as well. So as it scrolls through, it will show where those words show up. And again, the Fry words will be similar to the Alberta Ed list. So here, I'm going to go further down. Then there is a little bookmark that you can run off and talk about how to identify the word, how students identify it, and these 20 plus creative and fun ways for fluency. So the read aloud and think, shared reading, assisted repeated reading, and there's radio reading right there. And unassisted repeated reading, mumble reading. That's the really one. It's like, is somebody really talking? But it's very low, and it's just a good way for some who are quite shy to do in either large or small groups. So that is one of another one of the Fluency Bootcamp information. Paired reading is meant as a two-person activity. This paired reading in itself is not new. The link here goes to the paired reading video. This was put together, and it's a little dated, but the process is appropriate. That was done by the Northern Alberta Reading Specialist Council, and we have a number of reading specialists here in Alberta, part of that group across Alberta. Also, in looking at repeated reading, pause, prompt, and praise, recorded readings, and chunking text. Some other resources that you can click on the link when you get the slides. You will look at the phonics and spelling through phoneme and graphing, morpheme magic, morpheme for little ones. And the purpose to these is to build that sound symbol and that phonemic and phonological awareness, and building into that automaticity for decoding. Wikipedia has something that can support fluency by looking at simple English. So as we look here, we look at this particular link to Wikipedia. If a student was doing some research on bears, for example. So here we look at the bear and all of their characteristics if a student was doing research, and it has a lot of words that are 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 very multi-syllabic words. But if I went to languages, and it's now generally in the upper right, I could click on that, and it should often show up right away as simple English, or I can type into the search simple English, and it'll show up. And when I click on it, it changes the readability to 1, 2, 3 generally syllable words that are a little more readable and help support the fluency. Google Translate is also one to support the fluency of our English language learners, especially our newer students to the classroom, to the country. They can either type in their own home language and translate it to English, or the teacher can put into English and translate it into the student language. And then the Fluency Board. There are boards that are developed by Alberta Education, and what that will do is it will give teachers, and as many boards in the New Learn Alberta website, when we go to boards on that left side of the Alberta curriculum information, the boards give a little more extended, sometimes lessons, sometimes units, sometimes just some ideas and collection of thoughts that are either done by Alberta Education, ARPDC, or individual teachers or consultants, and that you can add to your repertoire. So I want you to think now, or what are the other instructional strategies that you use? What would you use to teach fluency to our older students, our students who are no longer in the kindergarten, grade 1, 2, 3, and 4, but are now into grades 5 and 6. Here are some other connections that might help support you. An article of the week by Kelly Gallagher, one by Dave Stewart Jr., Teaching Kids News, Science News, ReadWorks, National Geographic, Tween Tribute, DOGO News, and Newsly. So I invite you to take a look at the links that we're sharing with you, and know that I have enjoyed sharing all of this information with you. Thank you for viewing the ARPDC lecture on fluency in grades 4, 5, and 6. Thank you so much.